You're now listening to Vices and Vultures, a podcast on cultures. Welcome back to the Unpacked segment of Vices and Vultures, where we share from our collection of solo interviews done by the co-hosts. What's going on, everybody? This is A2. I grew up outside of the Bronx as a New York native. Having kept tabs on a distinct aura that is the Bronx, I couldn't help but notice the shift in creative culture happening in New York City's northmost borough. It's hard to look past the following voice as one who pioneered this entire movement. The next voice you will hear is one I'm happy to present. Representing the Bronx bred brand, simply known as the Bronx Native, my conversation with amaurys grullon was done in his shop and gives a taste of the flavor and energy that both him and his sister inspired countless people to push into their beloved Bronx community. Describe for the listeners where we are right now.
Right now, we're at the Bronx Native Shop, 127 Lincoln Avenue, in the heart of the boogie down Bronx, man. South Bronx. This is a shop, not only to sell Bronx-based merchandise, but it's also a cultural hub. This is a place for artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, everyone in the Bronx to come together, experience the BX network, break bread together, and have a good time, you know?
Wow, that's amazing, man. Every time I follow Instagram, I feel like there's a different event happening every night because there pretty much is.
Yes. Yeah, you know, we try to be as we try to basically use the space to the full of its potential, you know what I mean?
Right.
This space was empty for about 2 years before we came in, and we got to make it work. This is a fairly small space, but with what we have, we make the most of it. You know, we host a lot of events. Other people host events here, from events to things like community talks as well, book readings, book releases, you know, so there's a wide range of events, from cultural events of live music, spoken word, open mics, to events like somebody is, presenting there's a website launch, right? Or there's somebody, teachers want to have a get together, so we've had stuff like that.
So there's a lot of history here already with what you've been doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've been here for about a year and a half now, and the impact that we've had, not only in this community, but in the Bronx and even outside of the Bronx, has been pretty dope, something that we didn't really expect. And it just came, it came with the hard work, right? Us putting in all the work for the space and doing it up. We've gotten all of this traction and engagement for our brand and the shop, and it's been really great.
Right. So, 15-year-old you,
yes,
can the 15-year-old amaurys imagine this at all?
15.
Is he manifesting this?
Where was I when I was 15? For what grade are you usually in?
Like sophomore, junior, high school.
I was a sophomore in high school. Not really. I wasn't. It wasn't in my mind like, oh, I'm gonna make some T-shirts,
right?
And do cool things for the Bronx. I always knew I was going to be a creative and an artist, right? Because I was always drawing my whole life. Probably as a sophomore in high school, I was, drawing in the back of the classroom,
Right.
I used to make comics and stuff like that. And
word?
Look, I don't know if Naruto, but
bro.
Smash,
I get down with Naruto, bro.
So yeah, I was watching anime, drawing anime.
You on that Toonami wave, huh?
You already know it, man. That's how I started, bro.
Yes,
after
bro.
school.
That's everybody's. I feel like that's every US based teenager's primer to anime.
Yep,
Toonami.
That's how we got in it, and then it just took us from there, man.
Yep.
So that's what I was doing. So I always knew I was going to be in the creative field and doing something creative, but not necessarily doing something like this. That targets so many things. Is not only about being a creative, it's also about being a business person, and also about being community advocate,
right?
and community person in general.
You are now a personality that people can refer to when it comes to here.
Yes.
So when was the first aha moment in making this what it is? And then you talked about we a lot. Like who is we? Is it just you and like other people?
Yeah, so definitely we have a team here in Bronx Native. Me and my sister were the ones who founded Bronx native.
Okay.
So we did it together, me and my sister, and then we have a team that we work with.
Gotcha.
And I think that first moment was it was the beginning of 2017, man. It was January 6th or 8th, around there. I don't know, one of those days. And excuse me, we got invited for the first time to be on BronxNet. For an interview, right? That was our first time being on TV ever, right? You know, I was really nervous. I was like, oh shoot, this is the first time of that.
Right.
But we did it. And then after that was when we really decided, like, yo, this is the thing, man. I think this is, you know.
So what was the interview about?
It was about Bronx native.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they just wanted to know, like, what?
Yeah, like, because we started the brand in 2016, right?
Oh, okay.
So we were doing some stuff about it. Like, you know, we were just making, like, we started with 12 shirts. You know, we were like, okay, we got to do an Instagram. And we started posting some stuff. And we always, like, you know, of course, anything I do, I want to do it to the full of its potential. So, you know, we were like doing stuff, but then that moment in the beginning of January when we were on that interview was like that one when I was like, yo, that's it. This year I will be going ham. I'm Bronx native, and I'm gonna make it as big as possible. And 2017 was, for the most part, like our breakthrough year, man. It was the year we got the space. It was the year we got on the New York Times. It was the year we really put the brand out there, and people started recognizing Bronx native for what it is.
Right, definitely. And, you know, I remember it was 2017 that I found out about the Bronx native the first time. And then later on, I found out that our mutual friend Joe, it was just, you know, he's like, oh yeah, Bronx BS native doing his thing. And what I noticed about it was just I think you guys were at like 3K back then. Yeah. Like 2017, like it was in thick of the summer 2017. And then what I noticed is that you guys' output is just like staggering. And not even just like the output of like the Bronx native. I noticed that there's some brands under it, and then there's also, you know, your personal brand and things like that. Does like who you represent, like as amaurys, like encompass everything that the BX is doing? Because you're pretty much like a Bronx Renaissance man at this point. Like whenever I see you, I'm just like, I think of Bronx, I think of amaurys. So like,
yes. So, you know, for me, you said, does me as an individual,
does it overlap with the what goes on here at all? Because like I see, you know, your own presence.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it doesn't really, you know, it has helped my image as an individual and as a creative and as a person, actually. Right. So Bronx native has definitely, and everything I do kind of just force into my own personal brand as well, right? I try to minimize, you know, I'm two things for the most part. I am a creative and an entrepreneur.
Right.
Those are my things in my bio. Both things, right?
Right.
Entrepreneur. And, you know, Bronx native falls into that because it is creative, business, boom, boom. And then, but there's other things that I'm working on, right? Like I'm trying to get more into like speaking engagements, motivational speaking, like just inspiring the youth and inspiring anyone that, you know, needs inspiring and is trying to do something, you know, and believe that their environment is a product, you know, they become a product of their environment, and their environment holds them back to wherever they want to go or be, right? So that's something that I always like preach and tell everyone, like, you know, you can do and be whatever you want.
Right.
Just put in the work, you know what I mean? Talk to kids about entrepreneurship. And, you know, me as growing up, no one told me like, oh, you know, you could be your own boss and, you know, make your own money. And, you know, no one told me about entrepreneurship. It was just like, yo, you got to go to school. You know, the typical thing, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, entrepreneurship is lit, bro. You know, it's tough, it's hard, but it's all about the journey. And at the end of the day, you got to love it and you got to do something that you're passionate about. Right. So that's something that I preach through my brand, per se, and something that we preach through Bronx native as well, you know. So,
okay. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. And I agree, especially as far as the entrepreneurship, because there are more options now.
Yes.
There are way more options now. And, you know, I feel like part of what it was back then is that it hadn't really been proven yet, and it was very unconventional. So like you come along and you start this whole thing up in 2016, 2017. Was there anybody prior to you that was doing it in the way you're doing it, or
yeah. So there was so one of the reasons we did Bronx Native too was because we couldn't really find anyone that was doing this, right?
Yes.
And the way we kind of wanted it to be, me personally, I didn't find anything that was cool or that captured the history and the cultures.
I couldn't get behind anything.
In that, I was like, because I remember I was like, yo, I want to wear a shirt that says the Bronx. I couldn't find nothing. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird, bro. Because like Brooklyn got all this like T-shirt brands and whatever, like all this hype. Everyone has, you know, even Harlem. And I'm like, bro, like, what's the Bronx merch? You know, there's the hip hop, you know, salsa, all of these things came out of the BX, and we kind of just, you know, and it all adds to kind of just the Bronx being underrated and always been put last. So we're like, you know, we're just gonna tackle this, man. We got some creative, you know, I went to school for graphic design, so that's my background. So I was like, you know, I'm a designer. I can do this. My sister is a fashion design student, you know. So we kind of just put it together and did this, and also attaching our brand to a mission and a story and a cause too, which is very important for us, right? To just be for the community and do these things that we do for the community. So yeah, just no one was really doing it. You know, I mean, there's people that were doing it in smaller scale and are like now people that are like doing it like in not like a brand, like no one has like a shop like, yo, this is a shop just for Bronx-based merchandise. This is the only one in the Bronx.
And that's a very, very steep climb to get from, you know, just an idea and wanting to wear dope stuff that has the Bronx related stuff to it to actually having a shop. And you mentioned something earlier as far as being an underdog and talking about like the other boroughs such as Brooklyn having merch. Can you go a little bit more into that? Because, you know, there are people who live in New York who understand that, but there are also other individuals as well who are just like, oh man, like,
yeah, check it out, my man. We got all the designs right here in the rack, and then I'll let you know. You let me know what you need, right? Thanks. No problem.
Yeah, so just kind of go into that, like, has it always been like underdog mentality, or
man,
have you sensed that?
Yeah, no, of course, but man, you know, since the beginning of Bronx Native, and even before that, we, you know, I've always loved the Bronx, and to just hear all of this negativity and all of these like negative perspectives from people that were outside of the Bronx, people that work from the Bronx, you know, as people in school, right? I went to school at SVA, School of Visual Arts, and like I was literally the only Dominican kid from the Bronx, right? So I'm just like, yo, what's good, BX? Yeah. It was like, BX.
Everybody was clowning you.
This is what is this? Like, how is it over there? Like, are you scared? Like, is it scary? And I'm like, bro, it's not. Like, it's dope. It's a borough, bro. It's beautiful. So, and then I was like, how can I show these people what the Bronx really is, you know, and how can I change the narrative? And how can I identify me as an individual too, right, in these spaces where people don't really know me, right, and they don't know about the Bronx, but they kind of judge me on what they have seen or heard before, you know what I mean? So all of that comes into play, and I'm like, bro, I gotta just shed some light on like the Bronx, right? You know, and you know, of course, any borough, any place has the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But it's all about being authentic and showcasing it. And this is a beautiful, like I said, beautiful borough, hardworking people, diverse, community driven borough, which has done great things and has continued to do great things, you know?
Absolutely.
So it was just me, like, I gotta do this. You know, we are the underdog. No one really likes the BX or whatever, but I'm gonna make them like the BX, and I'm gonna show them what we're really about, and it's been working, you know? So recently we just had a moment where we were on Viceland, just a show called Hustle, right? And we just had the screening last Sunday. 1 week from now, legit. And we had the viewing party, and you know, sharing that moment. You know, it was my first time seeing the episode of me on Viceland. You know, so it's kind of nerve-wracking.
Congrats, man!
Thank you.
When did it get recorded?
We were recording for 3 months actually. Last year. So it was like October, November, December, and then the episode aired last week. That was dope. Moments like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez coming to the shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's killing it right now in the White House. And one of the first places she campaigned that was right here at the Bronx Native Shop. So I just posted a video of her yesterday, like a TBT of her like speaking here in the shop when she only had like a couple followers, you know what I mean? It was just, and now she got like a couple mils on her IG,
and she in the White House.
What's good?
Wow,
and doing it.
So she's from the Bronx as well.
She's from the BX. Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
She so that stuff like that. We have. I always tell this to everyone. I feel like the Bronx is kind of going through a renaissance at the moment. So for us to start with all of these people that are now doing great things and are going to continue to do great things, like Joe and Espresso State of Mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
They started similar times that we started, right?
Yeah.
We did a pop-up here with them,
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
it was all in the trenches together, man.
DJs that we started with, like DJ J Fuse. He's
I've been seeing those guys all the time.
He's doing his thing now, right? Like he, when we opened up the shop, he was our first DJ. You know what I mean? He played on the opening day of the shop, you know what I mean? So like, and all of these creatives, artists in all different fields that we kind of all are coming up together and been coming up together, and it's starting kind of like this movement. I think it's very beautiful, and it's dope to see all of our people come up and do dope stuff in their respective fields, you know what I mean? So
and then just trace it all back.
Yeah, and then trace it all back to the shop and to these times right here. I was talking to somebody a minute ago, like, 10 years from now, we're going to look back at these times and be like, right now we're like, it's not like, these times, like, we're just like, okay, this is cool, right? Things are cool. But like 10 years from now, we're going to really look back, like, remember when it really started? Like, it started those days, the shop days, right? We just here, like, doing it up, just, chilling. But look at where we are now, right? And I'm sure that we're all going to be in like big positions, doing big things, and look back at these moments and like reminisce and be happy and just be like, that's dope, man.
And there are cultural moments too. Like I remember when Cardi won the Album of the Year Grammy, and as soon as that happened, I look on my Instagram feed. There's Bronx Native with Cardi B merch. Like it's crazy, but it's cool because she's from the Bronx.
And that's I tell everyone we're living in the best time to be alive. When it comes to technology, when it comes to social media, when it comes to all of the resources that are in our are right there for us to use.
Yep.
We could do stuff like that, right?
Yep.
Cardi B just won merch. You know what I mean? ASAP. You know what I mean?
ASAP.
And like I said, no one is doing these things.
I love that.
And we've kind of tapped into a market which has not really been tapped into. When it comes to Brooklyn, everything in Brooklyn is branded, right? You got Brooklyn Industries, right, which makes the merch. You got Brooklyn Coffee, you got Brooklyn this, Brooklyn Buildings, Brooklyn this. Like literally, I was in Brooklyn the other day. It was just back to back, like Brooklyn jeans. I was like, what the hell? It was like Brooklyn dresses, legitimately, just like it was back to back, and I was like, like everything in Brooklyn is literally branded. They utilize Brooklyn as a selling point. And that was, non-gentrification, all that stuff that happened, and they've kind of lost their touch, and there's everything gets diluted when it's like that, when everything's just like so for us it's like the Bronx is kind of like the last stand, right? You don't see all of that, you don't really see all that pride, or you don't see, it's not cool to say you're from the world. It's not, but now we are seeing that it's beginning to happen, right? Yes. And we are that first, pioneer brand to be like, it's cool to be from the Bronx. Yep. It's cool to rep that you're from the BX. 2-3 years ago, people really wouldn't be like, yo, BX, dude. Now, because, of course, it's not like it's only us. Of course, Cardi B, Ocasio, repping BX, these are Mero on Showtime. These people all have kind of just rep it and like put it in the light, like, yo, we lit. We out here, we're doing big things in music. in nighttime, in night shows, in politics. You know what I mean? Bronx native with the merch. You know.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool to be part of that movement and to just make it happen with everyone.
Right.
You know?
It's literally unprecedented because I can be one of those people that says I grew up in New Rochelle, which is not too far from the Bronx. It's actually the closest borough to as far as the city goes. Yeah. And I remember growing up, and I've grew up going to churches in the Bronx, and I'm familiar with some neighborhoods, but until recently, like, I wasn't able to say, like, you know what, like, let me rock this, but it never existed anyways. And, you know, I feel like it's so important for people to act on these ideas, because for every Bronx native shop, and there's only one, there's several other people who were just like, you know what, like, I wanted to do this, but, like, I don't know if I can, and, like, all this other stuff.
Dude, there was an event here once, legit, a girl came to me like, oh my gosh, I'm so mad. Me and my sisters wanted to start a brand for the Bronx, excuse me. And you know what was going to be the name? Bronx Native. And I was like, nah, get the hell out of here, nigga. I was like, you serious? Like, yeah, I'm dead serious like that.
Wow.
And there's a lot of that, like, you know, and also like some old school peeps that are like, damn, like, you know, this is, you know, because I know of people that used to do it back in the days. Mm-hmm. And it was just not the time for it, right? And that's when it, you know, that's what I think is so beautiful and so, you said unprecedented, right? That we did it on the perfect time, right? Mm-hmm. It was just like, everyone just clicked, like oh, shoot, wait a minute.
It was really perfect time.
It's actually lit. Like, what the hell? I gotta rep this. I gotta buy it. I gotta do this. You know, and I go to these events and all these like movements and all these like art and like every day, like there's like a new page, like Bronx Cakes.
I know.
Bronx this, like Bronx event. Like, I'm like, what the hell? Like, what are these? You know? And some of them, you know, come and go, but some of them, you know, if they push it, you know, they push it. Right. I just saw the other day, like, somebody who legitimately, all they do is Bronx stickers. That's all they do. Like Bronx stickers. I'm like, that's lit. One person just
find a niche.
Stickers, find that niche, you know, and I think that's very important too for us. A lot of things came together to make the success of Bronx Native. One of it is finding a niche, right? Another is you know, time, and of course like execution. Mm-hmm. And just like consistency too, but all of those things come into play, you know.
Definitely, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, man. Congratulations.
You, yes.
Can I get a year?
Can I get a year? What's good, B? We out here, B. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Vices and Vultures, and considering being a supporter of this project.
Even leaving a review on your preferred podcast platform goes a long way for us.
There is more information about this episode, as well as who we are, in the show notes.
This includes all our social media links, so you can see us and not just hear us.
Vices and Vultures is brought to you by Aesthetic, and is based in the great state of New York.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes.
And tune in next time to Vices and Vultures.